We must not be suspicious, Gironda. What will help me to dispel my suspicions? Are things always the way you see them? Since you usually see everything in a negative way, place a big question mark after every single one of your thoughts, and spare a good thought for others, in order to avoid being wrong in your judgments. It's better if you place 2 big question marks, and even better if you place 3. This way you calm yourself and benefit, but you also benefit others. Otherwise, with your sinister thoughts, you will not become all steamed up, troubled, and upset, in which case you suffer spiritual harm. But when you confront whatever you see with good thoughts, after a while you will see that everything was indeed as you saw them with your good thoughts. I will tell you of an incident to show you what a sinister thought can do. One day a monk came to my cavity and told me, "Elder Karalampos is a sorcerer, and I saw him practicing magic." What a silly thing to say. You should be ashamed of yourself, I told him. Indeed, I saw him one night when there was a full moon, pouring something from a glass jug into the bushes and saying, One day I went to Elder Karalampos and asked him, "Father Karalampos, how are you? Is everything all right with you? Someone saw you pouring something from a jug into the bushes and making an sound." "Oh, there were some beautiful irises in the bushes and I went down to water them," he explained. As I watered them, I chanted to each one of them, "Rejoice, O bride unwedded." Do you see what he was doing? And yet the other monk took him to be a sorcerer. I see some lay people that have such good and wonderful thoughts, and others are tormented with things that not only do not exist, but even the devil would not think of. Once when it rained after a lengthy drought, I felt such great gratitude to God that I was sitting in my cavity and saying repeatedly, "Oh God, I am so grateful. I thank you a billion times." Outside, without knowing it, there was a lay person who heard me. And later he saw me, he said, "Father, I was shocked. I heard you counting a million, a billion, and I thought to myself, what is this that Father Paisios is saying?" Now, what could I tell him? I was expressing gratitude to God for the wonderful rain, and he imagined that I was counting money. And if he had been someone else, he might have thought of coming to rob me of my money, and would have given me a good beating after finding nothing to take. Another time, someone who had a sick child came to see me. I took him into the chapel to talk. After listening to his problem in an effort to help, I told him, "You yourself must do something for a child to be helped. Since you do not do prostrations, you do not fast, and you have no money to offer charity, you must say to God, 'My God, I have nothing good to sacrifice for the health of my son. But at least I will try to break my habit of smoking cigarettes.'" The poor fellow was moved, and he promised me that he would do it. I went to open the door for him to go out, and he left his lighter and the cigarettes in the chapel, under the icon of Christ. I did not notice this at first. After him, another young man entered the chapel to speak to me, and when he went out, he started to smoke. I had to tell him, "Young man, it is not proper to smoke here, go a little further away." But he retorted by saying, "Is it permitted to smoke in the chapel?" He apparently had seen the lighter and the cigarettes left behind by the father of the sick child, and imagined that I smoked. I allowed him to leave with his negative thought. After all, even if I did smoke, would I be smoking in the chapel? Do you see what it is to have negative thoughts, Geranda? How much harm can be done to the soul by suspicion, by mistrust? The harm is proportionate to the degree of suspicion and mistrust. Suspicious mistrust brings on feelings of weakness and low spirits. How is it healed? With good thoughts, Geranda. When a person recognizes that he has made a mistake about his suspicious thoughts, isn't this of help to him? If he makes a mistake once, it is understandable, but if he makes the same mistake twice, he'll be greatly harmed. Guarding against suspicion requires attention, because even if 1 in 1,000 things is not as we imagine them to be, we still harm ourselves. Once when I was in the Koenobium, an old monk, Father Dorotheos, was frying some squash. One of the brothers saw him as he was placing the squash into the frying pan, and he came to tell me, Father Dorotheos is frying some big red snapper fish. But I told him, it is not possible for Father Dorotheos to be frying fish during Great Lent. I saw him with my own eyes frying a big red snapper. He insisted. Father Dorotheos had come to the Holy Mountain at the age of 15, and he was like a mother to us all. If he ever saw a monk who was prone to sickness, he would approach him and say, Come here, I have a secret to tell you. And he would give him some ground sesame with chopped walnuts or something else. He provided for the other older monks in the same way. I went later to Father Dorotheos and saw that he was actually frying some squash for the infirmary. Geranda, what happens if a suspicious thought about someone proves to be true? Even if such a thought proves to be right, does this mean that such thoughts will always be true? And how can you then be sure that God did not permit such a thought to be proven true in order to test you and provide you with a spiritual lesson and humility? Certainly, one must be careful not to give cause for others to draw the wrong conclusions. For example, someone may have a sinister thought about you simply because he is spiteful, but you too may very easily give him cause by your own behavior. But if even though you have been careful not to give cause, someone still thinks something negative about you, then you should give glory to God and pray for that person.